Basketball fans, welcome into Raptors today. Akil, Sherm, Hamilton, the principal, Paul Jones, talking about Toronto Raptors basketball. 124-114, the final from Scotiabank Arena. The Toronto Raptors get a win, which now officially makes it their first three-game win streak of the season. And
crazy.
The first half of the season behind us, the Toronto Raptors had a very unkind schedule. So how significant is it for them to be rolling into the second half, winning 3 games? Sherm, I'll start with you.
Winning is important. And the Raptors need wins. So it's very important for them to try to establish or continue to build on things that haven't really worked in terms of correcting things. And also, this is the first time they have a healthy roster.
Yes.
This is it for the foreseeable future. So the fact that they have that and they have the ability to now string together some wins. And we always look at schedules and say, well, these are winnable games. And remember the Orlando back-to-back situation, and we thought those were winnable games, and they lost both of them. Well, now they've won winnable games, so they deserve credit for that. They beat Portland, they beat Charlotte twice, so now it creates a better vibe around the team that has their pieces together. Nick Nurse has everybody at his disposal, and now they can figure out who they can be with this group and the different machinations that they can put on the floor and how Nick Nurse can manipulate the lineup. So I think it's important to start off this process, this phase, in a winning way and continue to build off of it, because as we know, they have a 6-game homestand, which is going to end on Saturday against Atlanta, and then they start to get in the mix again with some difficult games. So win the games you're supposed to win and get out there and start to compete against the better teams.
Set the table for hopefully a close to the season similar to last year, Jonesy.
They were 23-23 last year. Everybody remembers the end result. But they were 23-23, and then they won 2 out of every 3 coming home. Finished the season 25-11 for their 48-34. And it was interesting. We had Precious Achiuwa on the post game last night on the radio side, and the last thing I asked him before he left us was, "What's the vibe like in the room?" And he kind of smiled and said, "Oh, we're confident. We're good. We're very confident." And you see some of that, and it's not irrational, unfounded confidence. They have everybody healthy. Precious is working his way back. Nick seems to have found something with Gary going in at the start of the second quarter, maybe the start of the fourth quarter with bench guys, with Malachi, Precious, Boucher. And it seems to be working. You're getting rest for Pascal, OG, and Fred, and that's a formula for success. And, there's been... Unfortunately, it's coming to my face, so I've had to listen to some of it. But there's been a lot of noise out there about, this team, and break this up and trade this guy and fire that guy. And
Twitter on fire.
Oh, yeah, just hang on a second. And, you say something like, well, they've climbing up the standings. They're in the play-in area. Oh, who wants to be in the play-in? Hold on a second. Just because you've been to the top of the mountain and you like the view, you got to go back down again every year and start the climb. And
reset these expectations.
You can't get to 4th or 5th or 6th until you pass, when you're 12th, until you pass through 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. So 3-game win streak, it's a great place to start. Hopefully they can start to string some wins together. And people will say, again, the noisemakers will say, well, you beat Charlotte twice. And can you imagine if you would have lost to them? Then what would you have said, right? You can only play who's in front of you. So I kind of like the way it's going right now, and I'm that comment from Precious is really taking up a lot of space with me right now, where the guys in the room have probably maybe not heard, but are aware of some of the noise, and are like, well, we got healthy people now. Let's see what happens now.
And an efficient night from Pascal Siakam in 38 minutes. He ended up with 35 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Let's talk about Pascal, because we know the Raptors go as far as their main guy, Jonesy. And going into the second half, you'd think a guy who's been leaned on so much would wear on him, but he looks like he's rounding into form in terms of how he's kind of found his identity as a scorer, especially with his increased expectations for himself.
You prepare yourself for that. That's what the offseason's for. You prepare yourself to be involved with the rigors of the season, the ups, the downs, the continue to keep playing. Walked by Rico Hines last night and sat 30 seconds, minute with him on the bench, and we got talking. And the word confidence came up. And he talked about it. You put in the work, you expect the results. That's what confidence builds. And it's like life. Put in the work, and when the right things happen or things that you expect happen, it's like, well, yeah, I put in that work. And so I look at Pascal, and it's been up and down, and you've heard him say this in front of the media. We'd rather win, we like to win, but you just got to keep going. You just got to keep putting in the work, and things hopefully will turn around. And I liked his kind of even keelness from his attitude, a kind of the maintaining the equilibrium with his attitude, even though the season has been up and down, and he's had some little up and downs within the season. And as your leader, I like that from a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, he missed 2 shots. He missed 2 shots on his way to his 35. So, and we're talking about Pascal and his ability to get to the free throw line. He did a great job in so many areas of the game. What's interesting about Pascal to me is that he's taken such a big step this year, and he said it. He wants his numbers to not seem surprising anymore. When Pascal puts up 28 and 12, he doesn't want people acting like, oh, that's a great game for him. He wants them to feel like, yeah, that's what Pascal does. You know what I mean? So his mentality is already on the level of, I can do this, and I can do this consistently. And when I do it, don't act surprised. Right. You know what I mean?
Get familiar.
And that to me speaks to his. I said this at the beginning of the season when Pascal said he wants to be a top 5 player. It takes a lot to put that out there.
Oh, yeah. The amount of scrutiny you're calling upon
and
yourself.
now you become a target.
Yes, exactly.
You want to be a top 5 player? Well, tonight against my team, you're not going to be that guy. That's the approach teams are taking, and he's still going through that and getting it done. So I have a lot of respect for that. I mean, we talk about manifesting things and putting it out into the universe. He put it out there, and now he's going to get challenged every night on that, and he's answered the call on it.
And not just opponents,
and he's
media.
good with it,
yeah.
right? And he's good with it, right?
Yeah.
The opponents, the media, and like I said before, he's like, okay, this is what I prepared for. I put it out there. Let's do it.
Jonesy, you mentioned it earlier, the amount of talk online for the Raptors fans. Talk a lot about Scottie turning down shots, but he's doing so many different things. He's definitely blossomed as a player and showing different things that he can do aside from just sticking to that 3 that the defense wants to force him into.
He's the last few games he's been aggressive right from the start. He hasn't waited till the 4th quarter and suddenly become upset with things and like, oh man, I got like the last minute studying, right? Like cramming before the exam. He's been aggressive early, and I like his playmaking and his decision making too. Just because they're encouraging you to take that shot doesn't mean you have to take it. Take it when it comes within the flow of the offense, when you're comfortable. I mean, it's an insidious way to derail the Raptors offense. Just drop, okay, Scottie, fill your hat. See if you can make these 15-footers all night. That means Fred doesn't touch the ball, Pascal doesn't touch the ball, OG doesn't touch the ball, and he's not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. He's not. And
the old banana in the tailpipe, eh?
I think he's doing a really good job of being a facilitator in the offense and keeping it moving and taking shots, good shots inside, but when the ball comes back to him in the right spot. So I like what he's doing, and I saw last night, again, a little bit more joy in his game, a little bit more of that enthusiasm, making people better. The pass is cool, and just feeling good about it. And for me, the more I see of that, the better Scottie's game is.
Yeah, and Scottie, he's not a player that any defender should be able to stand 7 feet away from, 10 feet away from him, waiting to paint for him. He's too good. He's just too good. It reminds me of when Rajon Rondo was playing for the Boston Celtics, and he wasn't a good shooter, but Rajon Rondo would eat up the space a defender gives him. So he's not going to stay out there and purview from the outside. He's going to continually, if you're going to back up, he's coming with you, and he's getting closer to the basket.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Scottie is getting back to doing, and we're seeing him now. He just has to look at the rim. He just has to present the option of him scoring. He's such a good playmaker and a good passer that defenses are going to react to him going towards the basket. And now those passes become more available. And he's so good in terms of having a shot that is so valuable. He has that 8-foot push shot that he can get off over anybody. screen and rolls, he rolls short into the soft spot under the free throw line. He can catch the ball and be a playmaker. And if they don't want to defend him, he has that little floating push shot that he can knock down. So to me, Scottie's skill set shouldn't allow defenders to play him the way Miles Turner was against Indiana, where he was way in the paint waiting for Scottie to do something. Zubac, Brook Lopez, these big guys didn't want to come out there. That should never happen again. And I think Scottie has learned from those experiences. Second-year player, you go through it, you figure it out, you get some help, you put it into play, and all of a sudden you see a guy who can impact the game on a high level again.
Don't sleep on his inside game either.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Don't
and the inside
sleep
passing of this group.
Just like getting down close to the basket, jump hooks, finishing with either hand, making passes, being a guy who's receiving passes from the dunker spot. Just don't fall asleep on that. Everybody falls in love with the perimeter stuff. Kid knows how to play in the paint, too.
All right, now, sure, let's talk about the bench, though, because we had a big game, career-high 5 steals for Precious Achiuwa, plus a double-digit outing. How happy is Nick Nurse that, this is going to allow him to do some more things? And Chris Boucher knows that, all the attention isn't going to be on him coming from that second unit.
Yeah, and both those guys play well together.
Yeah.
And that's something that was established earlier in the season before Precious got hurt. Precious, to me, is such a live wire. He's active. He's mobile. He's quick for a big guy. The fact that he can get into passing lanes or he can create turnovers isn't a surprise. This is what this team does. But I think for Nick Nurse, and forget about the Charlotte Hornets, Nick Nurse has the ability now to give extended runs to his bench because they're productive, because they are doing things that allow the starting unit or the starters not to have to be out on the floor and log all those minutes. So, of course, he's going to allow those guys to continue to play and play through mistakes, too. Precious is trying to get back into game rhythm and game shape, play through some mistakes. And we're seeing him and Chris Boucher find that synergy again. The both of them and their ability to impact game and be disruptive, to be active, to run the floor, to get on the glass, to make offensive plays, when you sprinkle it and they're each doing different things at the same time, they can create some havoc for the opposing team. And then Nick Nurse can throw a starter in with them. He can throw 2 starters in, and they can kind of blend the unit. So Precious is such an active player that he's going to have games where he has 5 steals, and he's going to have games where he has double-digit rebounds. He's going to have games where he has double-digit scoring. He has that type of flow to his game that on any given night, something can happen like that.
I find it interesting that you bring one healthy guy back in Precious, and now Nick Nurse finds a second unit where all of a sudden the roles are defined.
The first domino fell.
Well, as Sherm said, you've got Achiuwa and Boucher doing their thing, and then you've got maybe Gary as the featured scorer.
Yep.
Malachi's running the group, and then you throw a guy like Wancho in there who's
a willing cutter.
Who does everything. Well, that's
Great
my
space.
nickname for him, right?
Yep.
El Cuchillo, the knife in Spanish, right?
Okay.
And because of the cutting. And he can make shots. He's in a passing lane. He does all these other little ancillary and supplementary things in his role that supports the whole thing. And what do you know? Now you've got a bench unit where roles are defined and they can be productive, and Nick Nurse can leave them out on the floor.
All right, well, enough from us right now. It's time to hand you guys off to the players. Here's post-game sound.
Scottie, you really, when you start off like that and you're able to, Fred's kind of finding you on the roll a little bit like that, you get a couple of dunks early. How much does that help in just kind of setting up your whole night?
I think it just sets up our whole offense, to be honest. Trying to play with pace, keep getting it to both sides, trying to set good screens and being able to roll. I feel like they were stepping up on the ball screens a lot today, so it hit me on the rolls, and it was just setting up great offense for us tonight.
Another solid performance from you, Precious. How is it feeling out there rhythm-wise?
Just finding my rhythm. Feels good. It's been a really, really long process, but, just finding my rhythm every day is amazing. I just got to keep going, and eventually, I'm going to be where I need to be.
You had that extended stretch in the second quarter where you got, I believe it was like 8-9 minutes in a row.
Yeah.
Were you able to drink water after? How tired were you?
I was tired, but like I said, just the more I play, the more my lungs open up. My conditioning is getting better, my stamina. So, came out. When I got my second win, I was good to go.
So we are now officially halfway through the season for our Toronto Raptors, so it's time to put you guys to the test with our mid-season report, and I'll start it with this, boys. What Raptors trend most surprised you about the first half, Jonesy?
That their defense was so up and down.
Yeah.
For a team that was so disruptive and made it so difficult for opponents last year, and I know from talking to advanced scouts and assistant coaches around the league, Nick Nurse keeps people up at night. Like the stuff that he does defensively. Are we going to see box and one? And, are we going to see a triangle and two? Watch out for the press. Like, Milwaukee, you're up. Minute 16 to go. You're up 14 points. This game's in the bag. Giannis comes out, takes off the shooting sleeve, ready to throw it to a kid, and all of a sudden Bud goes, hey, I need you to get back. Nick Nurse keeps people up at night with this defensive stuff. And the fact that, and we know it's due to the health and the injuries, that it wasn't what it normally is. Even with some injuries, it was just a shadow of itself, and I think we're starting to see it kind of come back right now.
I agree with that. I would also say they're shooting. Yeah. I was surprised from three that they shot the ball so poorly. We know this team is a better three-point shooting team, and we're seeing it now.
Yes.
We're seeing the fact that, okay, when they have their roster together, this is more a semblance of what you can get from the three-point line from them because of the creation of shots, how they're created, and then more importantly, who's taking those shots. Without a healthy roster, some guys are taking shots that might not take those shots regularly, so it's a different flow. But that was one of the more surprising things from this team, that they didn't shoot the ball, or they shot the ball that poorly from the three-point line.
All right, now who has had the most surprising season so far, Sherm?
Is this league-wide or just the Raptors?
No, for the Toronto Raptors.
The most surprising season, I would say, even though you expect players to take a step coming into from the offseason, I don't think anybody expected Pascal to take this step.
Except for Pascal, maybe.
Well, yeah, except for and the people that have seen what he's done. But outside of that circle, he's been off the charts good. Whether you like him or not, you can't deny the fact that this guy put the work in, and he has numbers that are rivaling some of the best in the game.
Yeah, top five, definitely in his position and vying for that.
It's all NBA numbers, like legit all NBA numbers. So to me, I'm not surprised that he got better. I didn't know if I would see this kind of step from him, but I'm happy to see it, and all kudos to him. But his numbers and his ability to maintain those numbers have been phenomenal.
Jonesy.
Only because he's able to stay healthy, and we knew what he was capable of, but now he's garnering national attention, and that's OG Anunoby. It was put out there about him being all defense or a potential defensive player of the year, and there were some people in the national media that kind of scoffed at it. Like, really? And for the most part, he's been healthy. And I'm starting to hear that now trickle out from national media in the U.S., OG, and how coveted he is. And now as we move into trade deadline, hey, what would it take for Toronto to part with OG? It's like all of a sudden, oh, you guys, you're on this now. And that's the only way, to me, it's surprising that people have finally caught up. And it's because I think he's been healthy and been able to stay in the lineup. And, you look out there are times he's sitting in a stance and he's guarding Giannis. And then the next time you look, he's guarding a Trae Young, like LaMelo Ball. Like it doesn't matter. And I think his versatility defensively, we always knew about it in Toronto, but I think it's surprising people out there, and it's good to see for his own game.
All right, okay, we're going to hand it off to Nick Nurse before we look ahead at the next opponent for your Toronto Raptors, the Atlanta Hawks.
Nick, you had 30 more assists tonight. Is that the kind of ball movement and player movement that you were from seeing at the start of the year?
It's a little light tonight, wasn't it, Doug? 30?
32 the other night, 30 tonight?
Yeah, probably should have been 40. Opportunities on good plays that we didn't convert, but yeah, it was good. Obviously, we had a lot in the first half, but yeah, they're getting off it really good right now and creating some opportunities to draw defenders and pass the ball, so much better.
It looks like you seem to run a lot of pick and roll tonight, maybe more than the other night. Was that a way to attack them and get that second pass in the corner or whatever you need?
Yeah, it was. We did try to get a lot of pick and rolls in the middle of the floor tonight. What's also helped is that we've made a much more of a conscious effort to roll and hit the roller or put a little bit more pressure on the paint with that threat, and that has, again, I think given us a chance to get it in there and get it out of there, or get a couple roll baskets here and there as well.
Up next, the Toronto Raptors get another shot at Trae Young. We've seen 2 games where the Raptors had varied success against Trae. His numbers are ridiculous, though, something like 27.5 plus 10 assists. We've seen the blitz work against him. We've seen him have nights where he's been able to find holes in the Raptors' defense. What's the best approach as the Raptors move forward, Sherm, with this young man?
To not give him a steady dose of one thing.
Yeah.
Keep
it varied.
Great players, they'll figure it out. They'll dissect you if you continue to throw the same thing at him. And Nick Nurse is very, very good at mixing up defenses. I mean, they had a game where they turned him over 10 times. So there's something to take from that. You mentioned he's playing well. I think great players, as we've seen, get numbers. They do get numbers.
Especially with the amount of possessions he gets.
His usage is
rate.
high. Yeah. So they're going to get numbers. Just want to make it as difficult as possible. And a guy like Trae who can shoot it from anywhere on the floor and has the ball in his hands so much, it's tough to take everything away.
Yeah.
So they collectively just have to continue to throw things at him that try to keep him off balance in some situations at the very least.
And then on the defensive end, I always say there's no free pass at the other end. You can't let that guy stand around and guard air and not have to use any energy or be exposed to foul trouble or a little physicality getting hit on a screen. Like I think it's underrated how much you might be able to take out of a guy on the defensive end of the floor that might impact his offense. And to Sherm's point about not giving him a steady diet, when you do take the ball out of his hands, make sure it's not going to DeJounte Murray. Like, so you're 4-on-3 with another decision maker with the ball that already has an advantage. Just little things like that. I just think, Adrian Griffin, I saw him after the Charlotte game, and we kind of had a little laugh about his son.
Game winner.
Making a game winner against him. But, there's another piece. There's another guy, a DeJounte Murray and A.J. Griffin, some of these guys that can make plays, or
especially when your defense is so focused on Trae.
Exactly. So if you're a Raptor fan, you have to be confident in what Griffin, as one of the defensive guys, and Nick Nurse are going to cook up for Trae Young.
Saturday night is basketball night in Canada with the 7:30 tip-off. You can catch the game on the TSN family of networks, and that does it for us on another episode of Raptors Today. For those of you on the road, stay safe. On behalf of Sherm, Jonesy, our producer today is Akil. Big shouts out to him.
Akil.
And that does it for us. We'll see you guys next week.